Yo, welcome to Get Your Pulls, number 68. It's Muji.
It's Dan.
And we got nothing. I was kidding, we just don't have any news. We got back to LONGBOX of comics. We got a little bit of news, I guess, something. We don't usually talk about comic numbers just every once in a while, but since we got no other news, as you can expect, DC killed it this month on comic sales. Whether it was gimmicky or whatnot, their bottom line, they ended up having over 42% of comic sales this month, and then like 46% of the market. It's like they'd been getting beat by Marvel, or Marvel was having like in the high 30s and them in the low 30s, but they killed it. Now a bunch of people are getting them shit because officially they released like 113 books to Marvel's, like 60 something, but they're making them count the 3D and 2D versions of books. Like, those officially count as 2 books apiece. So, in all reality, to me, I'm not like, unless you're assuming that a bunch of people, which at least at our comic shop, I didn't see, like, being like, I gotta have both of these. I don't think that's really a thing. I mean,
No.
outside of, like, if there are speculators who, which there weren't that many comics. There's a couple things. Actually, I guess I have a little bit to say about this because it's weird, like, all the comments I've seen. One, that's kind of like, to me, that's kind of weak, counting that as like people using the argument, but they release 100 books. Because really, they release like, 70, which is a couple more than Marvel. Marvel uses the double ship method every week. Actually, the reason they normally beat DC is if you look in the top 10 comics, there'll be 2 all new X-Men in there and 2 superior Spider-Mans, and their most popular books they double ship, so they get twice the sales. I've seen a lot of targets say if they didn't double ship that it would be even, or DC would win a lot of the time. But also, people are using the argument that the reason they won was because of people speculating and all this, man. I don't know if that's true. It is to an extent. I have heard of people popping in and trying to buy up 3D covers and stuff, but man, most comic shops didn't get any extra. Like, our comic shop didn't get any extra 3D covers other than people that already had them on pull lists anyways. So I don't think that, a huge percentage of like the sales they did this month were like people speculating. And if it was non-comic people jumping in, grabbing some of the books, maybe they read them and liked them, maybe they got some extra customers. I don't understand the thing. Like, once a year doing something crazy like this, it's fine with me. It's not, everybody's comparing it to like the early 90s, which there is like some similarities, but in the early 90s, it was like a monthly thing, and they were releasing books with like 5 different covers every month that they were selling to you, hey, this is worth money. It's not like now where you have to be an idiot to be like, oh, these comics are going to put me through, my kids through college. Like, everybody knows they're not. Back then, they were like, kind of, letting you know, like in the advertisements, they were like, X-Men #1, X-Men #1 from 1968. Like, there were things in magazines. It was like, X-Men #1 from 1968 recently sold for this many thousand. It's your chance to be a part of history. It's coming out again. Like, they're not doing that. So I think people are really overreacting, and then everyone's dismissing, like, they did great. Comics were up 30% over last month for this month, so
Well,
that's good.
Isn't that the bottom line?
There's more comics coming.
Isn't that the ultimate goal of any business? It's always tricky when you have art as a business. That's always a tricky thing because you're never going to please all of your audience because art is so subjective, and people have different interpretations of it. But also, when you're putting a dollar sign on it, you have to figure out how to make that money to keep pumping out this product. And so things like this are essential. I think they're fine, especially once a year, as you'd mentioned. I liked Zero Gear last year with the 0 month issues in September.
Yeah.
And Villains Month, I think, was the same thing. They used a unique opportunity to try and build that universe a little more. And they need to because it's new and it's fresh and they're just getting off the ground.
Yeah, and like I said, we liked more books than we read, so there's a lot of people out there who just either didn't read any of them. I constantly see comments, which reading comments on anything is just, you're asking to get yourself angry, but just reading the comments on the sales I saw on a couple of sites where they posted them in the comment section, and it's people like, it's like, too bad the quality was low. I only bought 3 books. It's like, how the fuck do you know if you read 3 of them that the quality was low? Like, overall, there were more, I would say, there were just as many good DC books, or maybe even more this month than normal. And most of them that were bad, there were only a couple that we got between them, and we got more than half of them ourselves. And there were only like 2 or 3 that I would consider bad comics, and there were more than 10 of them that I considered really good comics out of the ones we got. So
that's just funny to me. It's like, oh, they were so bad I only bought 3. Was he mad because they left out a villain?
Yeah,
he was
dude,
like,
I don't
God
know.
damn it, I really wanted to see a fucking Calendar Man.
Yeah, there were so many people like that though. It's like, too bad the quality sucked, and it's like, I barely even read DC. It's like, then you don't know. You just read some people that were already like, this is gonna suck, and you just took their word for it, and now you're commenting on something that you're obviously, which is, I mean, what is like, that's what the internet and also news is about, is like hearing something and then regurgitating the secondhand thing that you have absolutely no information about, that you yourself have done no research on, and just stating as a fact. I mean, that's like news in general, and also that's how most people have opinions. It's my favorite thing. Is like, I would never, like, I fucking, that's, those things are terrible. I fucking have never watched or read one of them. It's like, how do you know, motherfucker? But anyways, there's that. There's a rant of the week. There's that segment out of the way. But speaking of segments, we got to one that's we've been kind of slipping on as of late. But no Todd, no problems. We're still going back.
That's right. Today we are not kneeling before Todd, but Dan is here. And I have for you a special Halloween-themed edition of Back to the Long Box, and I've read a bunch of shit already because I'm in that spooky spirit for this time of year.
I reread Severed just for the fuck of it.
Sweet. So yeah, well,
new Halloween tradition, throwing in my watching the whole Halloween movie anthology. Yes, including Halloween Deuce by Rob Zombie. Yes, including Halloween Resurrection. Severed, now added to it. Yearly thing.
Yeah, it's a good one. I read a bunch of shit. I got stuff coming for the next couple of weeks. It's gonna be fun. Got some essential Marvel horror. We'll talk a little bit about the first 2 issues of Ghost Rider, which really were just a setup for the introduction of Damon Hellstrom, son of Satan, and that's pretty much what that whole essential volume is about, is him and his sister Satana Hellstrom. So we'll talk about that in the coming weeks. There was a lot of that, so there'll be plenty to fill the issues. Also revisited some Dracula. I already talked about that on here, the little Batman zombie tale called Gotham County Line, and some other shit. So, we got that. But today, we got one of the all-time classics, and also a bit of a Halloween theme. It's a scary story a bit. A little bit of a horror vibe. Saga of the Swamp Thing in trade paperback form. This is the Alan Moore, Stephen Bissette famed run on Swamp Thing and its first few issues. Just marvelous, marvelous stuff. This is the kind of book that was written in I'm looking for the fucking year stamp. I think it's like 86, but...
It was Alan Moore's first thing at DC.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's probably 84, 83?
83.
Yeah.
So, from 1983, both the writing and the art stand the test of time. Not a lot does that. Alan Moore writes in such a way that it doesn't feel dated. Something you run into a problem with. Like, I still like reading old shit, but as we'll talk about in the coming weeks, you're reading this stuff from the 70s, it definitely feels like it was written in the 70s. This feels more timeless. Couple of great stories in here, actually. You get to see the Floral Man, I believe, Jason Woodrue. If you remember the fucking god-awful Batman and Robin movie, he was played by Donald Lionel Luther Glover as Poison Ivy's.
Somebody was like, hey, you know what? Can you guys work Woodrue in the script? We want Alan Moore to come back and write comics again. Yeah, let's do it.
Sure. So, but he's, in concept, kind of a silly villain, but the execution is just brilliant here. he wants to be what the Swamp Thing is, and of course this is also where we find that Alan Moore retconned the Swamp Thing's origin. In the previous, the way they originally wrote it, it was Alec Holland had a horrible accident, and because of the chemicals that seeped into him when he fell in the swamp trying to put the chemical fire on his body out, that he absorbed it and became Swamp Thing. Alan Moore sets you straight
Gave
on
him a
that.
way better origin.
Sets you straight
With permission
on that.
from the original creators, mind you.
And really fucks up the whole dynamic and like gives him a tortured soul vibe that he didn't really have, or that he only thought he had compared to the troubles he had when he found out what really happened to him, which was that Alec Holland was killed in the accident, but that in his death his consciousness actually seeped into the swamp, and the swamp mixed with the chemicals formed this sentient plant being, which was the Swamp Thing, which retained Alec Holland's consciousness. So, in all, he's not a human who was mutated. He's plant life.
Yes, I'm not a man. I'm a plant.
And there's a part where he finds that out and just becomes so fucking depressed that he goes into a vegetative state, quite literally. In that he just stops talking and thinking and just kind of lays on the fucking swamp bank and just grows and exists as a plant and lives in the green. This is where the green is a huge part of the New 52 continuity of Swamp Thing. This is where it actually came from originally. And then there's a second story about a fucking evil monkey that terrifies children's dreams, and Swamp Thing's got to save the day there. You also get the early stories of Abigail Arcane, and they've never really hooked up to this point. They've played the tension, but she's married to another dude who's kind of a piece of shit. And
yeah, she's like, my husband's a real asshole, but Swamp Dick? Swamp Dick?
I mean, you know,
There's legitimate concerns that go through someone's mind before having coitus with a plant.
It's like, am I going to get splinters?
Yes.
Poison ivy, perhaps?
Yeah, you never know.
But in any event, I think most hardcore comic fans have read this and probably know it backward and forward. But if you're a dabbler, if you just check out the podcast every now and then for suggestions.
If you're just newer to comics.
I
didn't read it till 6 months ago, so.
Can't miss this. I don't say ignore the original, the Lin Wein version of Swamp Thing. I'd say go check it out, but this is the definitive Swamp Thing. I don't think it can be done better than this, and I'm going to keep reading whatever there is to read from this run beyond this. But,
yeah, there's 6 volumes, so.
Nice horror
Good
vibe.
run.
Very, very dark. Alan Moore has a master on that. Definitely check it out.
Yeah. It's an important book. The introduction to most Americans back in the day for Alan Moore, really the start of the old British invasion, and really, a preview of what was to come when it comes to, comics being a lot more adult, a lot more artistic, and a lot more.
You can see where Sandman and Neil Gaiman drew so much influence from that book, just in like the way the paneling's done.
Gaiman admits.
I think actually the same artist worked on both books, but
yeah, Gaiman admits that reading Alan Moore was like one of his big inspirations into saying, "Hey, I can do comics."
Yeah, you can definitely see the influence, and not in a bad way.
Yeah, it was in real DC, but it was really the thing that spawned Vertigo. Even though Swamp Thing was in the DC line, it was the thing that was like, hey, we should do more stuff like this that reads more like, a novel with the pictures instead of, the funny books. But
Fuck yeah.
that is all. Guessing we'll have more back to Longbox next week.
Yes, Todd says he's returning next week. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. See what happens.
We hope he's back. He says he has an ice back to the long box prepared. But hey, if you don't, I'm going to tell you about Ghost Rider and the Hailstroms.
Nice. Well, guess over to the pulls for the week. Not really a ton of them. But we got at least a couple goodies. Batman Detective Comics number 24. John Layman, the end of this little story arc. Batman
Yes.
and Wrath.
That'd be John Layman's second real arc on Detective. John Layman coming over from indie superstardom. If you're a fan of Image, the book Chew been very popular over the last few years, and so he's making his jump to the mainstream here with a big title. And I think it succeeded, Mooj.
Yeah, it was good. I liked it. I like both his arcs, actually. Detective was a book that started out strong. The first little 3 or 4 issues were great. I actually liked it better than regular Batman. Snyder was doing the slow build, and then,
Now, wait, in the early days, that was Tony Daniel writing and drawing Detective on those first arcs. Is that correct?
I think so.
Tony S. Daniel, not C-3PO, for those.
Yeah, I think it's Tony Daniel. But it was good, and then it kind of went down the shitter. I even dropped it for like a couple of months, and then Layman took over, gave it a shot, kept it since, and yeah, I thought it was good. Wrath was a cool villain. He was, he's like a lot of Batman villains, I mean, it was definitely like a pretty clear, like, hey, this is what you'd be like if you're bad, which pops up in Batman from time to time.
Quite a bit. Interesting footnote that I found in doing my expert research here as a broadcast journalist for Getchyapulls. We thought that Wrath was a new character, but he's not. He was from like the 70s originally. He hasn't appeared in a really long fucking time, apparently. But in doing some research, I found that he is an old Batman villain. This is a new take, as most things in the New 52 are, on this character. And a lot of old Batman fans really liked that character, so he's kind of one of the old hidden favorites that I even wasn't aware of.
Yeah, but it was cool. Layman did pretty good, but he's done, so real soon. There's, as early as probably next week at Comic-Con, they're going to make the announcement that Francis Manapul and Buccioletta are coming to Detective sooner than later, so that could be the last issue by Layman. We'll see. Next year's a 0-year tie-in, so it actually would be perfect if issue 26 is when the new creative team takes over. But they have said that Layman is moving over to... He hasn't announced, but he said he is moving over to a DC book, and it's a big book, so I don't know what he's taking over, but he will be moving off Batman.
Tradesies? You going to go to the Flash?
Don't know. Who knows?
No, he would ensure that the Flash got kept on my pull list if he did.
Yeah, well, you should send. You could shoot him a tweet. If they haven't got their decision, if they haven't made their decision yet, they're gonna be like, "That's what the dudes from Get Your Pulls. It's a great idea."
Sensational.
Yes, but over my other DC book, Green Arrow, 24. Also, not really the end. I mean, kind of the end. It's this is the second arc by Lemire. Both of them kind of. I mean, it's over like maybe 6 or 7 issues. I mean, it felt like there were 2 arcs, but they kind of all run together into one bigger story, and it's not really over yet, but it's good. I like Arrow. It's I mean, the art style is different than anything else, and then the feel of the book. I mean, it's just really like it's just a big action book. There's like all sorts of big double page spreads with all sorts of fighting. It seems like a lot of books, like when there's like too much fighting, it kind of gets on my nerves. But in Arrow, they seem to be doing it really well to where it's still really exciting. And the big comics debut of Diggle. Good old Diggle from the Arrow TV show. If you watch that, if you don't watch it, then you were probably like, who the hell's Diggle? Which they've said that next year's a 0-year tie-in is going to explain who Diggle is in the comic universe. But if you do watch the show, then you're like, oh, cool, it's Diggle.
Yes.
But he shows up.
and a character created for the show that's already become pretty beloved with the Arrow fan base.
Yeah. And that's a tribute, of course, to Andy Diggle, who did Green Arrow Year 1, who, of course, did 1 issue of Action Comics, and DC made him mad and left.
And said, fuck this shit.
Yes. So, nice work all around. I guess I have no more comment on that. So now over to Trillium, number 3. That Jeff Lemire. Trillium is staying awesome. It's really wacky.
That book is fucking hard to read, okay? No, I mean, the content is fabulous.
This month was the weirdest. Trillium definitely uses Lemire goes for some new, different narrative styles. In the first issue, basically the story, if you haven't read it, there's two characters that are a man and a woman who are both investigating the same like old pyramid, and something happens to the pyramid that time displaces them, where they run into each other, and they don't speak the same language or whatever, but they figure out how to. And the first book, it was cool. You got the one story, and then when you made it to the end of it was one whole story from the point of view of the dude or the girl, which depends really which way you just happen to have the comic, because each cover was also different.
Yeah, you really could have read it either way.
Yeah, which I didn't even notice until I had the book. I mean, I pulled it out of the bag, started reading it, and then when I got to the other one, I was like, oh shit, there's a cover on both sides. And then when you get to the end of it, you're like, oh shit, it's upside down. So if you flip it over, you read the exact same like chain of events from the point of view of the other character, which is cool. Then last week wasn't really whatever. Last month's was, it wasn't.
There's a lot of setup.
Yeah, it wasn't that much different. This month we get the same thing where it's from the point of view of both characters, but instead
it's back and forth.
It's back and forth, yes. So
God.
You read like 2 pages from the point of view of the woman, and then you need to flip the book to read the next 2 pages. I will admit, the first time I thought it was cool. I was like, oh, this is awesome. This week, yeah, it was kind of annoying. I hope they cut it out with that. If you're gonna do the like half the book then flip the book, that's fine. But I don't need to be after every 2 pages being like, dude, what the fuck? Am I supposed to flip to the back? Am I supposed to just read this? Like, what am I supposed to do?
It was interesting, but it definitely it took a bit of effort. Not that that's a bad thing,
Yeah.
I guess, but it was a lot of spinning your comic around in a circle on the fucking table.
It was. And I'm guessing if you were reading it digitally, you probably didn't have that problem. But if that's the case, then I hope your problem is you dropped your iPod in the toilet. But just kidding. But anyways, over to my Marvel book, All New X-Men number 17.
Yeah.
Or Battle of the Atom, chapter 6. There's already been 6 of them. It's crazy there's already been 6 of them because, as always, they've pretty much been spent with everyone standing around arguing that they should send the X-Men from the past back to the past. But this week, it's still really entertaining. It is.
That's been compelling the entire time. I mean, it has been a lot of
some of it. I would say probably starting issue 2 to maybe 5. I would call it entertaining. I think that the end of last issue and this issue is when things have like heated up and it's become, I guess, compelling. Or I've been like, I want to see what's next, because before it was interesting. I mean, Bendis writes the characters where they're all entertaining, but it's kind of at a standstill for a while, but it has picked up.
A pretty big revelation in this one.
Yeah, you finally, if you've been reading along, I mean, spoilers as always, but if you've been reading on, you find out that at the last issue, some of the X-Men went to the future and were like, hey, the future looks pretty cool. Like, I think the future X-Men are lying to us, but then you find out it's not that cool. You find out that some really bad shit happens to old Dazzler. Dazzler, in a world that I never want to live in, Dazzler runs successfully for president of all the fucks, and wins, and then as soon as she wins, she gets fucking burnt to a crisp alive, and it causes Beast and some of the other X-Men to finally tip and say, fuck it, fuck these people, like we don't give a fuck about humanity anymore. And then the other X-Men who stay par for the course, actually, you can kind of see, like, embrace Sentinel technology and are actually, like, part of the keeping everything good and whatever. So you find out, actually, what you kind of find out is, in the future, things are basically as they are now, where some of the X-Men think things are cool, they need to stay cool to humans, and the other X-Men have had enough of it and are tired of all the mutants dying. But there's that, and we'll see if there'll be more X-Men. You got the new group came from the future back to the past again. It was like, hey, there's more of us. We're here again.
To keep up with. Like, yes. I didn't have a problem with that, honestly. Like, I really like, especially the shit with Iceman, because on the first future X-Men that came, he's this like inhuman ice Hulk that's just a big fucking monster, you know. And then when Ileana and the others go and see the actual future, they find that he's like an ice wizard, and he's like, you know, he's just an old version of Bobby, essentially, with much greater powers. But he asks, like, what's the deal? Did I turn into a fucking ice Hulk, or this me? And he's like, starts to tell him something, and then they cut him off.
Yeah,
I'm really curious where they're going there.
Yeah, I like this issue a lot. There's a couple more left. Well, there's 4 more left.
That's a 12er, buddy.
It's 12?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, man. If I wasn't already getting these books. If they do another one of these days, it's going to push too much. We'll see if it's sooner or later, but one of these days, when I find out my
for that specific reason, and X-Men are the worst about it, unfortunately, even though they're one of my favorites.
Yeah. I'm 1 or 2 times away from being like, oh, Wolverine the X-Men is part 2 of 8 of event. Well, fuck it.
And Green Lantern is fucking terrible about it too. Now, much like the Wrath of the First Lantern, it looks like this current event, you know, if you just read the beginning and end in Green Lantern, you're not missing a lot in the middle. And so,
I know Justice League Darkness next week is a 0-year tie-in. The next one is.
I'll probably get that.
I guess it's whatever. Well, no, it's not even. It's not a 0-year tie-in. It's part of Forever Evil. It's like whatever Constantine's doing right now. It's basically whatever. I read whatever.
Constantine was on the run with Shazam.
Yeah, it's like his continuing like what he's doing in between his appearances in Forever Evil. But yeah.
That one may go ahead and get dropped for that same reason. I do hate and Justice League Dark's done that a few times now. It's been a book that's been a victim of a multi-part crossover, and I hate that shit.
Yeah.
Because guess what? You're not. And we've talked about this a bunch on this show, but we got to fill time tonight anyways. I don't fucking talk about it. You are punishing your loyal fucking direct market customers when you bitch and piss and moan that the direct market is fucking dying. And you do this shit to the people. You make it difficult for a fucking regular customer to try to pick up. Because somebody coming off the fucking street, they subscribe to a book, and then they find they gotta buy 10 other fucking books. But if they wait a month, they can get the fucking trade with it all collected and it not be confusing and have them to fucking... You're just punishing the fucking loyal customers. That's bullshit.
I mean, if you're going to do events, I just think you should just give people the option, because as you've seen by the sales... Yeah, all these books are doing good and they're interconnected, and you are, you know, pretty much forcing people to get extra books they wouldn't get. But then Infinity's doing great on its own, so you don't have to. You could just do an event, which I've been fine. I've liked this one, but it really just has to do with if I like it or not. If this event sucked, and I would be like, fuck, we gotta go out of our way, which luckily we're getting most of the books, but it would still suck. Be like, oh, we had to go out of our way and spend an extra $8 a piece on books if the event sucked that, you know, we don't want. So yeah, it does suck, because, I mean, sales obviously show that if you do the events separately as their own thing, those are going to sell great, and sometimes even better. I mean, Infinity was, I want to say the number 2, Forever Evil number 2 was the best-selling book last month, or Forever Evil number 1 was the best-selling book last month. Infinity 2 and 3 were the second and third.
Well,
so those sell even better than these event tie-in books do when they're off on their own, where that's all you have to buy.
Infinity's a great example, because they also have, you've got the Infinity main title, and then you have like Avengers and New Avengers tie into Infinity, but it's an arc that still goes along with everything that they've done in the book before, that's separately contained to that book. So if you get 3 issues of Avengers during Infinity, you're getting 3 issues of a chronological story that is involving the characters you know that this event is just impacting. So it's not like this X-Men thing where you gotta buy fucking 15 different titles just to get your story.
If either me or you, either one, you know, if we didn't know each other and didn't both get a couple of the books already.
The only one we don't have is the adjectiveless X-Men.
Adjectiveless X-Men, yeah, and then just the Battle of the Atoms, you know, part 1 and 2 books, so they're only extra. But say you were buying them on your own, you would be getting 2, and you would need to buy 10 tie-ins on books you don't get, And now all of a sudden, you've randomly got, oh, I've got X-Men number 6 and 7 in my long box because they were part of this event. I don't get that comic. I mean, I think it takes advantage of the people who like want to have the whole run. So even though they don't give a shit about it, I'm sure there are people out there who, in these cases, only got the all new X-Men books that went with their all new X-Men run, and they're mad and are, you're shitting on like a loyal customer that's like, well, I gotta get issue 16 and 17 because I want to keep my run complete, but I'm not buying the rest of it because I don't have the money. And then they have two useless books that have nothing to do with like what they're doing. So, yeah, I just wish they would be cool about it. If you're gonna do an event, keep it out of the actual titles, or keep it, contained enough where you don't need to read it all. I mean, they have done a good job in like a lot of stuff where, as an example, any of the Batman books, any of the like things where they've tied into any of the regular Batman events with the Joker, or with now with Zero Year, or with Court of Owls, all those books you didn't need to read any of the extra to know, to have any impact in the regular Batman story. And at least for the ones we got, like they just went with your regular story. Like, for example, the Joker's appearances in Nightwing, it still went with like what was going on in Nightwing. It wasn't just like, oh, you got to buy these 11 or you're going to be missing pieces of the story. So, but anyways, yeah. Rant deuce over.
2 rants.
Yes, over to Lazarus number 4, which was awesome. Staying awesome. Ruckus killing it. Also, Michael Lark on the art is always awesome.
I mean, Rucka killed it pretty damn good in that issue, but Michael Lark may have actually been the all-star of that one. Just has some magnificent stuff in there.
Yeah, it's pretty badass. You finally get to see after, I say finally, it's only issue number 4. It's not like you've been waiting forever.
Finally!
Yes, but you get to see Forever, and you get to see what a Lazarus can do. There's all sorts of mysteries. If you haven't been reading the book, read it. There's a trade coming out with 4 giant issues. A real big trade there. It's a lot of stuff in a trade, but it's cheap. It's like $10, so it's still.
At least they're not trying to jack you up for it,
No. If you buy it on Amazon or cheap graphic novels trades are always 50% off pre-order, so it's going to be like $5 for 4 issues of the comic. So it still is a good deal. That is just a thin, extra thin trade. But anyways, it's if you haven't been reading, then you know that Forever, the star of our book, is a Lazarus, and she's not exactly a person. She seems to be kind of machiney. She has a family that's kind of her family. You haven't got all the mysteries solved yet on exactly what she is.
She's machiney?
Yeah.
Is that like a combined anti-cyborg and Jewish slur?
No.
Ba-da-bum-bum.
I wonder when that's going to become a thing. Like, when eventually technology makes it to where men and machines are way more combined. If that's going to be a thing that you could lose your job for, being like, dude, quit acting so machiney, and be like, dude, I'm 3/4 machine, motherfucker. It's going to happen. Or if somebody, I bet that could happen, or if somebody gets a fucking chip put in them, like a GPS locator, and you call them T1000, that would be like saying the N-word. In 2080, that's going to be the slur of 2080. Calling someone a T1000 is gonna get you fired from jobs. Only robot rappers will be able to refer to themselves as T1000s. But anyway, so let's back to the book. I pine for that future. I hope I'm still alive. I hope the machinery keeps me alive long enough to see it. But
I want to be a cyborg.
Yes, I want to be a cyborg rapper. But you finally get to see, though, in this issue, the Lazaruses, or Lazari, maybe the Lazari, unleashed, and you see them kick ass, and you learn that they can indeed kick ass. 2 of them kill the shit out of a bunch of dudes with guns, and you get to see, not only that, the action was great, but also the story. See Forever's family, the whole time it looked like her brother was kind of the mastermind of the family, and then he was the one that sent her out to get killed and all this. But you see her sister was playing him and had a backup plan to take control. So it's good. It's like Dallas meets the Terminator.
Yeah.
And I mean that in all the best ways.
It very much is. Like, in that action sequence, I was really, like, seeing that as a penultimate, like, HBO series type moment when she finds out that their family, Carlisle, is who's attacking her, which is her own people.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's like a big "you fucked me" moment. Like, you could really see that playing out super dramatically and awesome on television.
Yeah.
So I really hope they do something more with that franchise. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, that would be sweet.
I mean, Ruckus seems to, you know, he's not trying to, like, milk it for money, but, you know, he's got some little patches and things, so he knows it's got some sort of, like, marketability or viability. We'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. This is his image book. He's doing what people do with their books with image to make some money.
Well, I had two.
The deuce.
The deuce.
Better than the squadouche, but the deuce, nonetheless.
But they didn't make me feel like dropping a deuce. They treated me well while I was dropping a deuce a couple of times. But
I'll remember that if I read them.
had two issues. Green Lantern number 24 being the first. Hal Jordan's kind of been away, not involved in all this forever evil business because of Green Lantern commitments. Hey, when you got to police the galaxy, a lot of crazy shit can happen, and we found out it did, and now Hal's leading the Green Lantern Corps and trying to play this by ear as he goes. We know that Relic is this new villain coming to the Green Lantern universe. Didn't really care for his villains issue all that much. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. I think actually in this issue they did a better job of explaining what they tried a whole villains issue to get over, which is that Relic is he's kind of a Galactus-like figure. He's a giant. He's from the earliest stages of the universe, and he's figured out, or at least he thinks he has, that the source that the lanterns wield their power from is actually the energy that runs the universe. And so, and it's finite, so once they...
So he's searching for metachlorians?
a little bit.
Yes.
But once they use it all up, then the universe will die. And so he's trying to drain all of their lantern energy so he can have it for himself. And he doesn't give a fuck about the universe exploding, but apparently, like, the lanterns fucked him in the early days and all, and so he's trying to fuck them, and he just fucking walks all over all of the lanterns and puts his foot all up in their asses, and he destroys the fucking Owen power battery. And so I guess that's why the event's called Lights Out, because now this finite energy in this power battery that's been powering their rings for millennia is gone. So what
shit.
the fuck is gonna happen to the Green Lanterns? Who knows? But there's a fucking 8-part event that'll tell you about it. I'm gonna give you the Cliff's Notes. I get part 1 and I get the annual.
Nice.
And that's it. But really feel like Robert Venditti hit his stride with this issue on Green Lantern. I thought this was the one that made me feel like he's got a grasp on it. He's kind of not had a good luck with just the issue placement in his run, because he started and then it's like another event interrupts him. So I think if
Green Lantern is really the X-Men of the DC universe. They're like event.
Yeah, it is. It's events nonstop and crossovers nonstop. The shit gets annoying. But if you let Venditti tell one story, I'm sure he'll tell you a fucking good one, because this issue right here, I believe, proved it.
Yeah, I dropped it just due to when I was doing some consolidating, but I got the whole first 2 arcs of him on Exo Manowar, and he's good. He's good.
Yes.
Speaking of good,
the pick of the week, Forever Evil number 2. Nice crime syndicate cover here.
yes,
Lots of shit happening in this book.
there's a lot going on.
It's DC event style. So,
I gotta admit, I love the book. You do have to say, though, on the art, there are some scenes where maybe it's rushed or whatever. Who's doing the art on this?
David Finch.
Finch. Maybe it's rushed or something, man, but there's some of the big battle scenes where It looks like he's just like, I don't have time, and there's just like not faces and stuff. It's like the classic like blurry, like there's like 20 people and it's all kind of like blurry features and stuff where it's just like, I gotta draw another issue. But it's not like so bad it's like distracting, but just a nitpick and otherwise very good book. That does happen some in it.
Yeah, I guess they were against the wire with all the Villains Month crunches.
Yeah.
But I really like what they're doing here with Luther. I think this is really his. He's not really had a fair shake in the New 52 up to this point.
He's just been in jail the whole time. So.
Well, he was in that Grant Morrison Action Comics and portrayed as a total fucking loser, antithesis of everything Lex is. I like what he starts out here talking about. We've always had a rat problem down here. They're not very smart. No one's ever invented a better rat trap because no one ever needed to. And that's what the crime syndicate is thinking right now. So that's essentially his end to how he's going to try and take them down. And you see, he separated himself from all of their shit. So he's kind of this, you get Luther's build as the narrative, kind of as all the other shit is, the chaos is going on. See what's going on with the Teen Titans, nothing good. They know all the big boy superheroes are either dead or disappeared or something. So now they got to go take the fight to the crime syndicate.
Red Robin becomes de facto leader because he knows Bruce Wayne, so he knows how to be a dick.
He's like, somebody's got to do it. He taught me well. And the Teen Titans get their fucking asses whipped.
Yeah, they get temporarily eliminated. Whatever's going to happen to show you that everyone's not dead, it happens to them too, where they just are gone. They're fighting Johnny Quick, and by himself, he's just like, well, goodbye, y'all.
Yeah, Johnny Quick fucks the Teen Titans up. But the other major thing that happens in this issue, an origin of a classic Superman villain and a great DC character throughout history, retooled for the New 52, and you see really his first, other than Villains Month was something else to do with this, but this is his actual first appearance in the mainline continuity, and it's Bizarro, but he's Lex Luthor's patient B0.
He's a Superman clone that's not ready.
And so he ends up with a slightly retarded Superman clone, and that's where you, as opposed to this man from a world that's square and where everything is backwards. He gives him a Superman uniform and he puts it on inside out because they're in a hurry.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, it's Lex is like, you got that on inside out. And he's just like, ah.
And then one other big revelation, we end by finding out that Batman, Catwoman, and the meat that was Cyborg at one point are all still technically alive.
And a big revelation that we didn't talk about is there's a lot of big stuff in this book. What may start the undoing of the crime syndicate is you find out that, as all villains, even though they're on a team, they are really all kind of against each other. In the book, you got to see Johnny Quick wouldn't listen to anybody. Like, Wonder Man, told him to stay there and nobody needs to leave. And then he took Atomica and went and did his own thing. And then you find out that Owlman has impregnated their Superwoman, and Wonder Man doesn't know, and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do about that. She says, he'll hear the heartbeat soon enough, and he'll know it's not his, and so you find out that they all basically they don't really all get along, and that they're gonna come to blows soon enough, which I'm sure will play into how they get beat. As of right now, they're overwhelmingly kicking the shit out of everyone in the DC universe.
Yeah, and they think they've got most of the villains on their side, and as a lot of the Villains Month issues also prove, people like Black Manta aren't with them. People like Ocean Master aren't with them.
The Rogues are not with them. That's
right.
Their mini-series about how the secret society tells them to destroy... they're supposed to destroy the Flash's town? Central City, and they decide they're not going to destroy it, so then I'm guessing they have to fight the secret society, so... Yeah, you can see kind of what the undoings are going to be. What I like so far, it's part 2. What is it going to be, a sixer?
Yes, it is.
Sixer, yeah, once a month.
It's going to be going for a while.
Yeah,
we're in Forever Evil Universe for a bit.
Yeah, for a bit. Yeah, most of the books are tying into it one way or another. So yeah, we get to see that. A couple other mini series coming out that might be cool. I don't know if I'm interested enough in getting any of them, but the Arkham War looks like it might be cool.
That was the one that intrigued me the most. I mean, I hate that there's a series about the rogues that I'm not getting, but I just like.
I think they're all 3-parters, all of the
It's
tie-ins.
kind of predictable. Rogues Rebellion. Like if I'm wrong, then I'll check it out in trade for sure. But it's just like, oh, they're gonna go up against the crime syndicate.
Yeah, there's that. There's the Argus one which is gonna be the remnants of the Suicide Squad. I think fucking, battling against, deciding they're gonna do their own thing.
Steve Trevor and Amanda Waller coming together.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah, so I mean, there are a lot of people out there, and even the villains. I mean, you saw like Deadshot and Harley Quinn are not on the side of the villains here. So yeah, it's interesting. It's cool. So it's just 6-parter, so it's not crazy. I like the fact that it's out of the books. I like the fact that even though some of the books do tie in, I mean, there are at least like you can follow what those books are doing, like in the books themselves. So it's not.
Yeah, I mean, you're still getting your character's story all the way through, at least. Like, they might give you a little narrative at the beginning to be like, okay, well, your last arc finished, and then in between then, the fucking crime syndicate took over the world, and now here's what your guys doing. And they're going to tell you a full story, and then you're going to move on to your next thing.
Yeah,
so it's not impacting your books like that.
Yeah, so it's not that crazy. But anyways, next week will be... What's today? The 4th? Today's the... Yeah, next week will be post New York Comic Con, so we'll have a dickload, a young man's dickload worth of news. Say a dickload could be nothing, but we'll have a ripe young dickload worth of news next week. Also, we'll have...
Speaking of...
We'll have a 14-year-old who discovered porn for the first time size dickload worth of news next week. We just want to take that over the edge and too far.
Well, considering it will be episode number 69, I think that's only appropriate.
Yeah, and so plenty of books. Walking Dead, Booyah, All Out War, number 1.
Walking Dead All Out War number 1,
of
and
a billion.
the return of Walking Dead to television for season 4 that night. So it's going to be, with it being October, we got Halloween coming, we got Walking Dead coming. Oh, it's going to be a fucking marvelous time, Muji.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, plenty of good pulls next week, plenty of news. Probably let's talk about dicks. So get your pulls.